Hello everybody, it's your boy Faerodyn here. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to make a tail tidy from your stock Fender using my 2017 KTM RC390 as the canvas. If you're like me, one of the first things you got tired of looking at when you brought home your brand new motorcycle was the stock rear fender. And it's no wonder. It's unpainted cheap plastic, it sticks way out behind the motorcycle, and it just makes it look cheap. So you head over to RevZilla to check out some tail tidies and see how much they cost, but they're over $100 just for a simple metal bracket. Well, I'm going to show you how to turn this into this. A finished product that'll look every bit as good and professional as something store-bought, but you'll have the added pride of knowing that you made it yourself. And best of all, unless you have to buy any of the tools or supplies I'm about to show you, it won't cost you a penny. And you won't even have to worry about if it comes in a color that complements your bike or not, because you get to choose whatever color the finished product is going to be. Alright folks, let's get our working gloves and our creative caps on and get this project started, shall we? For this project you're going to need an Allen key to remove the back seat, a socket wrench with a 10mm socket to remove the 4 bolts that hold on the rear fender, a small to medium Phillips head screwdriver to remove the license plate light fixture, a 14mm closed end wrench to help you remove the turn signals, some JB weld, the black and red kind, a clamp of some kind to hold the parts in place while the JB weld sets, some spray paint for the finishing touch. I find Rust-Oleum is a pretty affordable, easy to find, and very durable product to use on this application. I used a flat black enamel and a gloss white enamel which I found at my local Walmart. And finally, for cutting the metal, either an angle grinder or a Dremel tool shown here with a carbon cutting wheel. Go ahead and start by removing the front seat with your key, and then the rear passenger seat with the Allen key. Once you get the Allen screw off, simply pull forward and up on the rear seat to remove it. Now this shot here is looking down underneath the rear passenger seat. Now this black sheath right here has a bunch of wiring harnesses bundled inside of it. Go ahead and slide the sheath down, exposing the wiring harnesses. Out of all the wiring harnesses bundled together in this sheath, we're only going to need to worry about 3. This small red one, which is for the license plate light, this gray wiring harness, which is for the right turn signal, and finally this small green wiring harness, not the big one, the small one. That's for your left turn signal. Once you get those 3 wiring harnesses isolated, go ahead and disconnect each one of them by pushing down on the tab. Once you get all 3 wiring harnesses disconnected, take note of the hole that they go through, as you'll need to gently guide them through that hole when you slowly lower the fender. This will ensure that they don't snag on their way through, causing damage to the leads. Next, you're going to need that socket wrench with a 10mm socket to remove the 4 hex nuts that are holding the rear fender in place. Here are the upper 2 hex nuts, and down here are the lower 2. Just a side note, guys and gals, when you're taking the fender off, be very careful. There are these little metal sleeves you can see here. These little polished inserts. They're loose. So when I pulled this off, I didn't realize that, and both of these popped off, rolled under one of my cars, and I had to crawl under it to get it. Not to mention I had to use a flashlight just to be able to see them. So just be aware, there's one on each of the posts. They're essentially just spacers. Just be careful when you pull it off that, you don't let them fall off. Before we can begin cutting, we're going to need to start stripping things off of the tail fender. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove these 4 bolts here with this Allen key. Now on these top 2, the backing to them is actually a 10mm hex nut, whereas the bottom 2, their backing is actually welded to the bracket itself, so you don't need to worry about these. But with these, you may need to get a 10mm socket and hold it in place. Now hang on to this bracket, because we're going to reuse this one. Alright, now what we are going to do, we're going to go ahead and separate the plastic housing from the actual metal frame of the bracket by removing these 2 Phillips screws here. Once we remove these, we should be able to separate the 2, and then we can go ahead and finish stripping down the turn signals. Once you get the plastic removed from the metal bracket, go ahead and use your 14mm wrench to finish removing the 2 turn signals. Next, use your Phillips head screwdriver to remove the license plate light fixture. Alright, now the goal here is to remove that mid pipe, but leave enough material behind that we can weld together later. So basically what I'm going to do is remove the mid area. This here is a section of pipe that I want to remove. So as you can see here, I already started cutting a little bit along the welds because I want to save that little U-channel there, but remove the section of pipe that's above it so that I can weld the part of the rear fender where the license plate goes to the actual base that mounts to the motorcycle, just without the mid pipe. Alright, so here you can see where I chose to cut off the end of the fender where the license plate goes, and then here you can see how much of the actual mid pipe I cut off because I just didn't need it. So to get an idea of what the finished product will look like, I'm only going to be using these 2 pieces here. Now for the JB Weld. Now my suggestion to you is, first make sure the surfaces that you apply it to are clean, and use as much as you can. You don't need to use the entire package, but I would definitely say to use it liberally because you want to make sure that the bond is going to be as strong as possible. Obviously, if you have a welder yourself and you know how to use it, more power to you. I would suggest using the actual welder instead. But for me, since I'm on a budget and I'm sure many of you are as well, I'm going to be using this JB Weld, and I know it will do the job. Here I'm just adjusting the rotation of the 2 parts, trying to get them to line up perfectly so that everything isn't crooked when it's done. And that's one of the advantages of using JB Weld over an actual weld is, as it's setting, you can still adjust it. Alright, so here the product is finally set and ready to be stripped down and painted. You can also go ahead and cut the plastic shroud and just save the part that you want to use, which for me is just the very end for the turn signals and the license plate light. Alright, so here's the finished product, stripped down still. As you can see, I repainted it after cutting it apart, and that way it just sort of prolongs the life of the metal. It won't rust or start corroding or breaking down as quickly. This is especially a good extra step to take if you're going to be, leaving it on for a while, keeping the bike for a while, whatever. I just want to note here that to add a little extra character to my tail tidy, I went ahead and painted the plastic shroud and both rear turn signals white to more coincide with the color scheme of the bike. I started out by painting the entire plastic section flat black to add an extra layer of protection from the sun so that the plastic doesn't weather or get aged. To spare you the pain and agony of watching paint dry, I decided not to record that part of the project. As long as your paint is dry, you should now be ready to start reassembling your new tail tidy. I'll go ahead and show you all the steps here in case you forgot. That sure is starting to look like a new tail tidy, isn't it? Oh yeah, all your hard work is about to pay off, I promise. This clip here shows the tail tidy after I put it back on the bike. Now for me, it still sat a little bit too low. I wanted to ensure that there would be plenty of clearance between the bottom of the license plate and the rear tire. I thought it would be a little bit safer and also look cooler. So I took the license plate back off, I drilled 2 new holes a little bit higher than the bottom ones, and shaved off those 2 sections that were sticking down there at the bottom. So now the license plate sits tucked up right underneath that light, giving it that cool aftermarket professional tail tidy look. And there's what she looks like today. I also went ahead and cut the 2 side reflectors, the red reflectors, off of that cross bracket that the license plate actually connects to. and so that gave it a much cleaner, much more simple look without being, you know, overly busy or anything like that. Alright, if you were using this as a guide to do your own tail tidy, I hope it turned out the way you wanted. As always, if you have any questions about how I did something, or if I have any suggestions for you, please feel free to let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel and checking out the content. There are more videos coming, so please stay tuned. Until next time, ride safe and have fun, everyone.